Hi everyone, as you probably already know, we are going to be creating our very own color wheel today. Our color wheel is going to include 3 different groups of colors. The first one is going to be the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. The second group of colors that's going to be included in this color wheel is the secondary colors. That's orange, green, and purple. And also, we're going to get a little complicated today, and we're going to include the tertiary colors in our color wheel. That includes red-orange, yellow-orange, yellow-green, blue-green, blue-purple, and red-purple. Now, you might be asking yourself, why are we making this crazy-looking color wheel? What's the point? Well, knowing about color theory, knowing what the primary colors make together and how to make the secondary colors and the tertiary colors is basically like putting a bunch of tools in your artist toolbox. Because when you know how to make more complicated colors like red-orange or yellow-green, then you'll be able to, first of all, tell your story through your art more easily as an artist, and also you will be able to color match a lot more successfully. Say you're trying to paint a picture of a realistic landscape, knowing how to mix those more complicated colors is going to help you get there. Not only that, but we are immediately going to be using these color mixing skills to create another project right after this. So there you go. That's why we're making this thing. So let's get started with a square of white paper, and our first step is going to be to draw a triangle. Of course, we're going to use 3 straight lines to draw this triangle. We're going to draw it nice and big, and we're going to make sure to leave a lot of space above the triangle and below it, kind of like this. After your first triangle is all done, rotate your paper so that that triangle becomes upside down. And what we're going to do next is layer another matching triangle on top. And again, we're going to leave space above our triangle and below our triangle as well. This is going to create a 6-pointed star, or some people call it a Star of David. Now, in between each of the 6 points of the star, we're going to add 6 straight diagonal lines shooting out from the center. I like to use a ruler for this, but you could also freehand it. It's up to you. The key is that at the end of this, you have 6 straight lines shooting out from the points in between the 6 points of the star. Throughout the rest of this video, I'm going to be calling these the spikes. Now let's talk about where each of the colors are going to go. On the points of this upright triangle here, that's where the primary colors are going to go. On the points of the upside down triangle, that's where we're going to paint the secondary colors. And on each one of the spikes, I call them, we're going to paint the tertiary colors. So really quick for you, I'm going to label the points: primary, secondary, and tertiary. I suggest you do the same. That way, you'll be able to keep track of everything throughout the painting. Next, we're going to choose 3 different shapes to draw on the primary points, the secondary points, and the tertiary spikes. So for example, I decided to draw hearts on the points of the primary triangle. Check it out. On each of the points of the primary triangle, which I labeled, I'm going to draw a heart. You can draw hearts too, or you can choose a different shape like a square or a diamond. Now choose a different shape for the points of the secondary triangle. For this one, I decided to keep it simple and just draw squares. Last but not least, choose a third shape to draw on the end of your tertiary spikes. I chose a triangle for these. We're going to be coloring in these shapes with the corresponding colors, right? So my hearts are going to be the primary colors, my squares are going to be the secondary colors, and I'm going to fill in those little triangles with the tertiary colors. Now the drawing is done, and to solidify it and make it permanent, we're going to trace it with some permanent black Sharpie. I used a fine point Sharpie for the color wheel and then an ultra fine point to label primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to paint. What you're going to want to do is find yourself a circular paint palette, and you're going to fill up 3 wells with the primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. Now the key here is to make sure that you leave at least 2 spaces in between each of those colors. Now make sure that your color wheel paper is oriented so that your primary triangle is standing upright. And our job is pretty simple. We are going to fill in the top shape, mine are hearts, remember, with red, the right point of the triangle with yellow, and then the left point of the triangle with blue. Now a couple of tips, even though this is easy peasy, I do still have a few tips for you. Tip number 1, use a small paintbrush. This is a small space, and so we don't need a big paintbrush or else it might get messy. Tip number 2 is paint in the edge of the shape first, and then fill in the center. Tip number 3, make sure you clean your brush really well in between each color, and that goes for this whole entire painting. Cleaning the brush is so important, and I suggest swishing the brush in the water first and then making an X on the sponge like this. That ensures that your paintbrush is nice and clean and ready for the next color. Excellent, so we have our upright triangle all filled in with the primary colors as we should, and now we're ready to actually mix some colors. Our job is, for now, basically to move in baby steps from yellow to red. And we're gonna start right here on this little triangle. It's gonna be a tertiary color called yellow-orange. To get started making yellow-orange, switch paintbrushes to a larger size and start scooping out half of your yellow paint and putting it one well over towards red. Notice how I'm rolling the paintbrush at the bottom of the well to get the paint off. Once you've moved about half of your yellow over to that well, you're ready to switch paintbrushes once again to a smaller size. And with that small paintbrush, take a baby dip, just a baby dip of the red, and mix it into the well of fresh yellow. Now don't get lazy here, make sure you mix and stir the paint until it's all a matching color. It should turn into a tertiary color called yellow-orange. It's kind of orange, but it's mostly yellow. That's why we call it yellow-orange. To keep my palette in place while I'm doing my mixing and my stirring, notice that I'm using my left hand to hold down the center so that my palette doesn't move around. Next, it's time to use this gorgeous yellow-orange to fill in the shape on the end of the spike that's next to the yellow, towards the red. Since we're done with yellow-orange already, I am going to thoroughly clean my brush with a swish in the water and an X on the sponge. Next, moving right along towards red, we're going to make true orange. So we're going to take another baby dip of red. Red is a very powerful color, so we just want to work a little bit at a time. You can always add more, right? But you can't go backwards. So baby dip of red and mix it in with the yellow-orange that you just created to make what I call true orange. Orange is a secondary color, and therefore it's going to go in the secondary color spot on my color wheel. That is the point of the upside down triangle that is the next spot over from yellow-orange towards red. It's right here, folks. And again, just a tip, fill in the outside edge of the shape and then fill in the center. And of course, make sure to thoroughly clean your brush before we move on to red-orange. To create red-orange, again, take a baby dip of red and mix it in with orange. Like I said before, red is super powerful, and so you don't want to go too far. It will take over. Once you have a beautiful red-orange, a color that is more red than it is orange, you are ready to fill in the shape on the end of the tertiary spike. In other words, the last remaining shape that's between orange and red. And since we're really switching gears with colors here, make sure to clean your paintbrush extra good with a good swish and a good X on that sponge. What we're going to work on next is the colors between red and blue. And the first one we're going to be working on is a color called red purple, or some people call it red violet. To do that, switch back to the big brush again, and we're going to scoop half of our red into the well next door by rolling the paint off the brush into the next well. And once you've got about half your red in there, you're ready to add a little bit of blue. To do this though, we're going to want to switch right back to the smaller paintbrush. Now, red and blue are both very powerful colors. So instead of doing a baby dip of blue and mixing it in with the red, we're actually going to take what I call a toddler scoop of blue. So a toddler scoop is bigger than a baby dip. Since red is so powerful, you might need a little bit more blue to change it, right? If one toddler scoop of blue wasn't enough, feel free to add another scoop of blue to the red. Just make sure that you clean your brush very well before you even touch that blue with a dirty paintbrush. As soon as you're happy and you have a color that is more red than purple, you've got red purple or red violet, and you're ready to fill in the tertiary spike that's to the left of red towards the color blue. Once that's done, we're ready to make what I call true purple. But first, make sure to thoroughly clean your brush with a swish and an X on the sponge. Now, making purple, especially with tempera paint, is pretty difficult. So it might take a little bit of experimentation. It might take a little bit of extra focus, but your job is to add more toddler scoops of blue into your red purple. Make sure to mix the paint all the way until you decide to add more blue. And if you do decide to add more blue, make sure that your paintbrush is very clean before you even think about dipping that paintbrush back into the blue. But keep adding blue little by little with toddler scoops and mixing it fully until you've reached a purple that you like. As I said before, purple or violet is actually really hard to nail for some reason when you're mixing together red and blue tempera. So you have to be the decider here. As soon as you think you've added enough toddler scoops of blue to make it purple, then you're ready to go. And our next job is to take that purple color and fill in the shape that is connected to the secondary triangle. It's the upside down triangle, and it's the shape that's just to the left of red violet. Next, clean off that brush with a swish and an X, and we're ready to fill in another tertiary color in between violet and blue. To do that, we are going to take more toddler scoops of blue and mix it in with our purple. And we're going to keep adding toddler scoops of blue until that color is more blue than purple. It's a tertiary color called blue purple, or more fancy folk call it blue violet. Just a reminder, as you keep adding fresh scoops of blue, make sure that you're cleaning your paintbrush. We don't want to contaminate our blue well with violet at all. So notice that every time I'm about to add another toddler scoop of blue, I'm cleaning my brush with a swish and an X. Now keep your eye on that color, because once it becomes more blue than purple, it becomes a tertiary color called blue purple or blue violet. And once it's ready to go, we're going to fill in the tertiary spike that's in between purple and blue with blue purple. Yay! We are almost done with our gorgeous color wheel. We just need to clean off our little brush and start mixing colors that go slowly, step by step, from yellow to blue. So grab up your clean, small brush. We're gonna go back to baby dips. We're gonna take a baby dip of blue, a very powerful color, and we're gonna go back and mix it in with our yellow well. It's immediately gonna turn colors. It should be a color that is more yellow than green. It's a color called yellow-green. It's a tertiary color, and we're gonna paint in this color on the spike that is next to yellow towards blue. Once yellow-green is done, clean off your paintbrush, and we're going to try to create a secondary color called green, the classic green. To do that, we are going to, with a clean brush, add another baby dip of blue into the yellow-green well. And we're going to mix it up thoroughly. Keep adding blue until you get what you consider classic green. And when it's all mixed up, we're going to fill in the point of the upside down triangle that is reserved for secondary colors next to yellow-green towards blue. Okay, folks, we are on our final color. It's a tertiary color called blue-green, and it's a color that is more blue than green. We're going to fill in the last shape on the tertiary spike between green and blue. To do it, we're going to take baby dips of blue and mix it into our green until we hit that color that's more blue than green. And once you've nailed it, it's time to fill in that final shape on the tertiary spike. For me, it's a triangle. I'm not sure what shape you chose, but whatever it is, when you're ready, you're going to fill it in with our last gorgeous color. Awesome job, you guys. We have been on quite the color journey. We've had to follow a lot of rules. We've had to be really careful to nail those primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Now it's time to cut loose a little bit and use the extra paint that you have left in your paint palette to make an abstract painting in the center of your color wheel. You might be able to see a hexagon in the center of your color wheel. Your job is simply to fill it up with the colors that you have left over. So let loose, relax, and use some shapes, lines, colors, and designs to fill in that hexagon with an abstract painting of your choice. Have fun. I can't wait to see what they look like. After you're done with your free-form abstract painting, it's time to take your paint palette and your brushes to the sink and clean them out thoroughly. Use your paintbrush and running water that's warm to clean out each one of the dirty wells, including the edges and the top of the palette. Make sure to flip over the palette to get any paint that might have snuck onto the back. Next, it's time to clean your paintbrush by holding the paintbrush under running water, swirling it on your palm, and giving a nice hairdo at the end. Then, get any leftover paint that's left in the sink, scrub it with your hands until it goes down the drain. Great job, folks! Can't wait to see your color wheels!